Welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. How do we learn to truly thrive together? How do we stay connected to our authentic selves, each other, and our purpose as a team, especially when challenged? How do we unlock the deeper levels of group intelligence? Enjoy this episode of the Connected Teamwork Podcast and learn practical tools to evolve the connectedness of your team to its next level.
Well, welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast, where we help teams, leaders, individuals connect more deeply to themselves, each other, and their purpose. I'm your host, Hylke Faber, and here together with my other host, Carson, Heady. Carson, how are you today?
Hylke, I'm well. Thank you for your time and insights as always. I'm excited to unpack this one with you.
Looking forward to it. We're going to discuss today connected communication practice number 2, go to the beach and be in appreciative presence. This practice is about being clear about the energy we bring into conversations. And the crocodilian part of this is running and never stepping out of it and not being aware of what's going on. And we're going to talk about the power of presence. When I start workshops, I often ask people on a scale from 1 to 10, how present are you? And not to reveal to each other, but just to be clear to themselves. And 1 is, I'm totally somewhere else. I'm still in the previous meeting. The thing that's happening with my friend, spouse, colleague, neighbor, children, whatever. And 10 is, I'm totally here, as present as I were when I asked my spouse to marry me, or if I have children, when I held my firstborn in my arms and saw them, or when I was in nature and I saw something like a sunset or that waterfall or mountaintop or whatever it was. And when we ask ourselves on a scale from 1 to 10 how present we are, we notice that our presence actually goes up. We can actually realize that presence is a choice. We often make the unconscious choice to be somewhere else. And I call that our mind is taking us for a walk. Like our mind is taking us somewhere that we think is very important. It's like watching a movie. Like, no, I've got to watch the end of this. Or a Netflix series. I'm going to tune into the next thing. What's going to happen? And so we don't see ourselves clearly, we don't see people around us clearly, and we don't see the task clearly. And what presence does is it's always there, and that's very easy to miss and very important to remember. Because, we go into these meetings and we might think, not sure how they're going to react, or I have to say something difficult, or in the middle of the meeting, people say something that's hard for us to hear. And our reptilian, crocodilian ego brain wants to immediately react and have something to say. And because we anticipate this, we are up at night, we're over-preparing, we're stewing, all these things, or we're after the fact regretting and obsessing about what just happened. The funny thing is, we don't need to do any of this. We can simply choose to be present. And that may seem like nothing. Like here you are in a meeting being just present, a wallflower. What are you talking about? But what I find is when we are present, or when I'm present, there's a whole wealth of resources that just shows up. Like it's just like getting up in the morning and the sun is here again. Oh, I'm showing up and when I'm present. What happens with me is I go from this stress and sense of like, am I doing it right? Doubt, perfectionism, pleasing, to sense of well-being. I see my colleagues or my clients or my whatever ... person is in my life, not as my enemy or a person that I need to use or as an obstacle, or I see them as just like me. Hey, it's just a person. Carson's just a person like me, I may love him, I may not love him, I may like him, but he's just a person like me. And so that puts me in a same side of the tables feeling, and it changes my relationship with the task being in presence, because as opposed to being completely obsessed with this task, and there's some health in that too. I can see the bigger field and say, oh yeah, I'm working on this meeting, I'm working on this thing that just happened is maybe not what I want, or we're behind. And the task goes from just another thing, to like our life becoming this endless task list, to more being of a place of discovery and service. How can I serve and be of service? So, Carson, when you think about not being present and becoming present, what is your experience?
Yeah. Hylke, I think you beautifully articulated that. And, even as you asked that question, and I remember, we had conversations in the years that we've known each other where we've started with that very question. And even as you asked it, and as you pointed out, I asked myself, how present am I at this exact moment? Probably a 5. I was running long on a call, and got a lot of things transpiring in the business and personal realm. And, I think too, the fact that the hybrid world that we live in has probably exacerbated the challenges that we've already had in being present. I am very guilty sometimes of being a rabid multitasker, and it limits my ability to be present. And I know it. And I did a show recently, and it was all about how you make people feel, makes all the difference in the world. And when you're not present, whether you know it or will admit it or not, it shows. People can tell when you're not engaged. When you have to say like, "Oh, could you repeat that question?" You're checked out, and especially if you're not on camera and you're disengaged. There's so many situations now where it makes it challenging. Within hybrid work, there's really no buffer. There's no commute. There's no real transition time. So often we're bouncing around from one call to the next. Being present is critical, because if we're not, we will miss those vital opportunities to invest in and impact relationships. And that's everything. Relationships are everything. I don't care whether it's you're leading a team or you're part of a team, you're impacting culture. You're a seller, and you're selling something, and you're trying to earn a relationship, earn trust, or you're trying to positively impact or influence. You have to be present in these situations. And it becomes very challenging when we're jumping from meeting to meeting with no pause. That diminishes presence. We live in this myth that, if I just keep going and doing and executing, I'll stay ahead of the curve or ahead of the chaos. And that's a falsehood. And I think that's why the beach practice matters now more than ever, because the environment that we're in is probably less conducive to being present than ever before, because we've got, handy things like this that, are buzzing at us constantly and pulling us away from the present moment. And that's why I think you so beautifully pointed out, when you have these special moments with family or you're in nature, the most present I've ever been I've been untethered from the digital world, and I've actually been with the people or God's creation, those types of things where I've been fully present. That's why being present is so important. It's easier said than done, but it is worth being intentional in finding ways to be present every day.
And being intentional, like humans are intentional. We are humans when we are intentional, when we really want something. Like when we are like, I want this. And nobody says at the beginning of the day, "Hey, Carson, hey, Hylke, hey, John, hey, Mary, you need to be present." Or maybe in some cases they will, but very few people. So there needs to be an intrinsic motivation to be present, because otherwise the reactive mind will take over, the habit. And as you said, Carson, we live in a time where rat racing and multitasking is the norm. And I ask myself, I'm 53, not at the beginning of my career, I'm probably in the middle somewhere. Like, this life goes by very fast. And do I want today be just a task list that I completed? Or is it something that I might even want to enjoy or even give something to, where I say later when I die or when I'm about to die, yeah, that was a day worth and well lived. There's a statistic of people that are interviewed before they die, which I think is a delightful research. And many of them say that they wish they spent more time with nature, with family, and so on, and less time in the office. And I would like to investigate that being a false dichotomy. If we can make sure that we bring our whole person to work. I love what I do. And part of why I love what I do is being in present, because when I'm in presence, I feel I'm totally here. I'm at one with all, and I'm listening. It's like playing music. I'm listening to what needs to happen next, and that's a delightful experience. It's like almost being one with nature, and that may sound a little esoteric, and yet that background, my inner background, that presence, and I can see it in people around me as well, creates very different meetings. It creates levity because sometimes we're in the middle of something that may seem all very serious, and it's like, oh well, it looks like we're really stuck here. And it's funny that I find people that are present usually have a very much better sense of humor. It's like, okay, yeah, that's what are we doing here? I also noticed that there's a sense of awe for being human together. Like, we're here together. Yes. We all were little boys and girls at some point, or whatever you identify as, little persons, and we had dreams. And then somehow in the middle of our life, we get snowed under all these obligations. I had a client say to me, yeah, adulting is like hoping next week will get better, and it's never getting better. It's like, that's so sad. Now, meetings and being together in work can be something very, very beautiful. And so, to me, if we want that, talking about intrinsic motivation, we have to ask ourselves, what do I want my life, my work, my meeting, my company, my work, what I want it to be about? And to me, presence is the beginning of it. And then from that place, I can do anything because I am here. So that gets us to this acronym, the beach, because we're often not present, and it's understandable. I'm often not present. I just went through Thanksgiving week and I loved it, and I also find it often challenging because we have 20 plus 30 people flooding through the house at all kinds of times in the week, and mothers-in-laws and all kinds of things are happening. Whew, it's a lot. And if I say, oh, just be present, it may not always be enough for me. So I found this little acronym, BEACH, be helpful to, you could say, bring my nervous system back into the presence. And BEACH meaning B for breathe. Take a deep breath. Somebody said something in the meeting, maybe something like, I didn't like your proposal, or no, we're not going to do that, or we have to turn this around by tomorrow. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Breathe. Encourage yourself. E for encourage yourself. Yes, you're probably feeling a little fear right now, a little frustration, maybe a lot. Okay. Accept yourself. That is, to me, so important. The sense of, okay, whatever happens, I'm going to accept myself. I'm not going to try to look for validation outside. Otherwise, I keep running in rat race. Then C, choose higher wisdom. Choose. I have a choice in this moment. I can stay in the mental mode, or go to the H. I can choose a higher intelligence, higher wisdom. And that's for everybody different. I think about What would somebody admire do to this moment? When Hylke is at his best, what does that feel like? Am I there now? No. What can I do? And it often, when I go to the beach, I often stay there for a little while. Like, okay, maybe time to take a little walk or take some deep breath. So Carson, when you are finding yourself adrift in a meeting, at work, and family life, how do you recover?
Love the call outs there. I actually have a friend of mine who he said something very profound a few years back to me. And it's, one of his focus areas is be where your feet are. And, just being cognizant of, in this moment, I'm here, I'm with Hylke. I'm, on the Connected Teamwork podcast, getting grounded in what I'm doing. I look sometimes at the title of the episode and I go back to it and really get grounded in that. And I have to constantly remind myself of that. It's funny that you call this the beach, because I actually had this for a long time. I had like this happy place in my mind, which was from the old 80s movie Cocktail and the Beach Boys song Kokomo, and just kind of taking me to my time in Jamaica and just thinking like getting out of this fog and this place. But the other thing I realized is that a lot of the fear that we have, or the reactionary things, are like these devices that pull us away. Like these are all acquired or accumulated. Like I'll give you an example of the Thanksgiving holiday. My wife and I took our kids to this Polar Express train ride, and they encourage even the adults to, wear their pajamas. And so for me to go out in public in my pajamas, I'm like, my gosh, I have a real fear about doing this, because I just feel weird. I feel weird going out in granted, I have a very cool like Hugh Hefner bathrobe, and I wore some like holiday pants that made my wife chuckle. But there's a preconceived notion that, hey, this is a little weird. People are going to see me and think something negative of me. But I look at my kids and they have literally no apprehension about it whatsoever. We're not born with this fear or this inability to be present. We acquire it over time because we convince ourselves that notification of my buzzing phone is emergent, and it's flat out not. And that's why it's critical that we, are constantly in a state of recalibration and, taking that balcony view that you've instilled in me over the last few years. I like the imagery of the beach because it's something we can do very quickly, but it's also practices that we can do to reframe and reset.
Great, thank you. It's that sense of beach. Be where your feet are, and accept that as a human being, you are most likely going to be afraid of something. Some people tell me I don't have any fears, and like, yeah, all right, we'll see about that. Somewhere, accept that you have some insecurities, accept it, and then become present and let it go. We're going to take a short break. After the break, we'll discover more about how do we actually stay present, especially when we're in a meeting where it's like, yeah, this is not going well. See you after the break.
You are listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Do you want to learn more about building the next level of connectedness in your team? Please contact Growth Leaders Network on LinkedIn. And now, back to the show.
There's this beautiful Tibetan practice, which is when you're in trouble, go lie down on the floor and look at the sky. Simple. When we're in a meeting that doesn't go well, whether it's really not going well or whether we're perceiving it not to be going well, most of us, our mind will optimize for what is not going well. And very quickly thereafter, we'll add a catastrophic outcome picture. This means we will lose this client. This means this relationship is now kaput. This means we will never have financial wealth, which this means that fill in the blank. And so we are expert, at least most of us are expert horror movie producers, and we watch that all day long. We have that like always accessible to us. Now, we could say, I just quit from this job. Well, that's nice. But you have this, like The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked #2 was just out. I loved that movie. Some people didn't. I love that. And you see the wizard, like this little man, basically handling all those machines to keep the image of the wizard going. And that man is very invested in keeping this thing going. And so our horror movie producer inside of us is very motivated. And we've rewarded him and compensated her for our whole lives. So we can't just kill him, or like that's not how it works. We just have to say, yeah, you keep making these movies, but I'm just not going to watch them with you. Yeah, I'm just not. So that's what presence does, and what the beach does. I acknowledge, I don't deny. I acknowledge that this might be going on. So when the meeting's not going well, I acknowledge, yes, my crocodile reptilian brain will have some catastrophic scenarios, and I will have an emotional reaction probably around that. Just breathe. And then notice when I'm becoming present at 10, what happens with the gravity of the situation. It's like, well, it's not the end of the world. I'm still here. They're still here. And you know what, Carson, I've had so often in those moments of catastrophic thinking that when I stopped and the other person then said something constructive or nice, I was so surprised. Like, wait, I'm for sure that this was going to be the end. What is your experience with that?
I love that you called that out. It reminds me, and my wife reminds me of this too, on the show This Is Us, where the character Randall and his wife, they would have this worst case scenario. For everything that would come up, they would have this worst case scenario that they would walk themselves through. Okay, if the worst thing happens, what would it be? Let's speak it out loud. Let's acknowledge it. And frankly, what is it? 90% of the time that never comes to fruition. So even preparing yourself mentally or emotionally for the worst case scenario, and then, recalibrating around the reality and the new playing field or the parameters that you're set with, we can only do so much. You have to make the most of the hand that you're dealt. But at the same token, I do think it's important, while you may give some credence to what the worst case scenario may be, you don't fully subscribe to a doomsday philosophy. I think there's a expectation of leaders, to be calm and to stay present, and to stay steady, keep that steady hand on the wheel, even when, and frankly, especially when you're being hit from all sides. And, you mentioned when a meeting is not going your way. It reminded me of a situation where, I had an executive that wouldn't meet with me years ago at a very large, prominent organization, a name, a household name. And I wound up getting to some members of the board and some other C-levels that actually forced a meeting with this executive. And I flew in an executive from my organization and a team of several people from around the country to be in this meeting. And this executive just dressed me down in front of all of these people. And I could have very easily, number one, was I nervous going into it? Yeah, I think nerves are a sign you care. Nerves never go away. But even in that moment, making sure that I wasn't reactionary, I was able to look this person in the eye and say, I'm invested in your success. That is why I have convinced these people to be here to invest in where you're going. And if there's something that you can give me that I can work on that would equate to a win for you, let's pursue that. If there's nothing that I can do that could equate to a win for you, because I knew what this executive wanted to do and where they had failed within their organization to be successful, They were trying to do something and crack a problem on their own, and they weren't able to do it. And they didn't look at us as a viable partner. And I felt that we were a viable partner. So I said, give me some trust, extend me some trust. And if I can't do anything with it, I won't bother you anymore. And we ended up going down a path together, and the deal happened, and it was very, very successful. But it's rarely a straight line. And I think that's why, Hylke, we have to be very cognizant that there is a vast difference between where the reality is, where we think we want to go, and the worst case scenario. Because the reality is probably neither one of those is going to happen. We're going to have to be versatile, and we're going to have to sometimes pivot midstream as we're in these meetings. And that's why it's so critical that, I mean, sometimes we are pivoting and recalibrating multiple times in one meeting because curveballs are thrown. We have to be able to adapt and pivot. If you keep that focal point, that person that you're trying to connect with, or people that you're trying to connect with at the heart, and you keep asking yourself, how can I best meet this person in this moment? How can I best fill my role in this moment? How can I best serve in this moment? Believe me, more often than not, you will be successful because your priorities are aligned with where you want your outcome to be. It's all about that person on the other end of the table. It isn't about yourself. And when we react, it's about our own fear. It's about that fear of, wow, what if I lose this deal? Or what if this goes sideways? Or what if none of those things matter? Because at the end of it, you want this relationship to emerge better than when you sat down. It isn't always going to be perfect, but if you focus on recalibrating around that relationship, sometimes multiple times in the same meeting, you're going to come out okay.
I hear it's a leaping of faith. It's a leaping into the present moment over and over and over again, out of our mental contraption of like, this is how it needs to be, the expectation, how it should be. Because if I stay in the how it should be, I should win the deal. They should like me. They should agree with me. I'm actually not open to being with what actually is here. And there's a very deep awareness underneath it for me, which is a sense of faith, a sense of trusting that reality has more in store for me and for all of us than my little mind can conjure up. It includes a sense of letting go. Being present requires us to let go of the mentalization of what we think should happen now. And when we do that, we're present to the whole thing. And it may not be all that we like. But what it is, it's truthful. Like in this meeting with the executive that you mentioned, maybe the truth of the matter was, and it wasn't, but the truth could have been, no, at this moment, we can't work together. There's no reason for us to work together. And that's okay too. Because when we meet another person in that deep sense of truthfulness, that by itself, unfortunately, is somewhat rare and therefore memorable. And guess what? Then a relationship is forged, and that person will remember you for your integrity. And therefore, good things, meaning things that you do want, ways of working together, will emerge naturally. Right? So that is the power of presence. It's not just watching and doing nothing. It's being very active and appreciative of what is happening for me, for you, and what we're working on. Right? I think about it as being on a hike. I love hiking, right? And sometimes I miss a junction when I'm in the middle of the mountain. I didn't see something. And more often than not, it's because I'm too busy thinking about what I want to see next. And when I'm totally present, it's very obvious to me when to turn left, when to turn right, and keep going. And the same thing is true for a meeting. We're getting to the end of this. One practical tip, Carson, for people who might find it hard to be present.
Remember that you can't control the outcome of a meeting, of a conversation, of a situation, but you can control how you show up. And when you go to the beach, so you breathe and you encourage and you accept, you choose and you tap into that higher wisdom, you're going to become the person that can show up even when life is throwing everything at you. You can control how you show up, and you're going to be able to walk through these situations with clarity and humility and strength. And that will make the best of the situation that you're in. Because again, while you can't control the outcome, you can control how you show up, and almost that foundation for success that is rife with more fruitful dialogue, better foundation for relationship, and frankly, how you're investing in your connection with other humans.
It's being intentional. So think about that as you go into a next meeting. Think about being intentional about being present. And be gentle. I'll add that to yourself. When you notice yourself not being present, say, yay, I noticed it. Yay, and allow yourself to come back to present. It's been a delight to explore this topic with you all, and thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Connected Teamwork Podcast, episode 75, a little celebration. Here together with my co-host Carson, Heady. My name is Hylke Faber. See you next time at the Connected Teamwork Podcast. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Take a moment to reflect on what you learned today that can help build your team. Also, if you like, think about one of your team members and what you appreciate about them. Let them know. Enjoy connecting more deeply to what is great about them. And see you next time at the Connected Teamwork Podcast.